London is full of really weird buildings, okay? You've got the walkie-talkie tower, a tower that seems content on melting any chump that walks below it. You've got the O2 Arena, a sad circus tent that looks like it has the life drained out of it years ago. And of course you've got the Gherkin, something that resembles a mighty glass Johnson that looms above the city. Yeah. But what if I told you that London's most fascinating and weirdest buildings were the ones that never got built? Yeah. From a 94-story pyramid that could hold 5 million decaying bodies in North London, yeah, this is true, or a Victorian steam-powered skyscraper that would almost be as big as the Shard. Yeah, so we're delving into fascinating stuff. Stay tuned because we're going to have a look into them. Yeah. I'm Joe Condella. This is London History. Let's get on with it.
The history of London.
In the 19th century, Londoners would die at such a rate that the city was actually running out of room to bury them. Thanks to a booming population, the odd cholera epidemic here and there, and just a aging population in general, the churchyards were full to the brim, and I mean quite literally full to the brim. It wasn't uncommon for people to have to bury coffins on top of each other. There are even reports of gravediggers actually having to hack up old dead bodies to make room for the next ones. Pretty grim stuff. Yeah. This became a bit of a problem because when you have that many dead bodies and they're not like in coffins and whatnot, fluids from the body have a way of leaking into the water supply, which made even more people ill and more people died, and then the whole thing just went round and round and round like some tainted version of the magic roundabout. Weird it was, very strange. So what did they do to combat this? Well, you might think, well, they probably built more cemeteries, didn't they? That's probably the right thing to do. No, they didn't actually. Well, they did in the end, but not at first. Along comes a man called Thomas Wilson, who had the bright idea to build a 94-story pyramid of death capable of holding up to 5 million bodies, called the Metropolitan Sepulchre. It would have been about 18 acres at its base, which is about the size of Russell Square, so yeah, that's considerably big. It would have risen 300 feet in the air, so would have been bigger than St. Paul's Cathedral. And this is me guessing here. They never went into the materials of what they would use, but judging on other buildings built in London at around that time, I think it would have been built with London stock brown brick. Would have looked pretty classy, actually. The monstrosity would have been visible from pretty much anywhere in the city. And when Wilson pitched it, he wanted it to be a dignified solution to London's overcrowded graveyards. It combined efficiency with architectural grandeur. And of course, it was inspired by the Great Pyramids of Egypt. In fact, a lot of buildings were in Britain at that time. They went through a bit of an ancient Egyptian phase, let's say. They liked all the mummies, they liked everything. So inside, the pyramid would have been built with like catacombs, inside, and lined with shelves of coffins, 5 million of them. No problem here. So needless to say, a lot of people thought this idea, even back then, was really weird. Critics called it like this disgusting, hideous, repellent thing, and it would cause like an actual shadow of death over London. And then of course there were the logistics. I mean, come on, a pyramid for 5 million decaying bodies, that's not an easy thing to build, and probably impossible, actually. Yeah. First thing you have to think about is ventilation. I mean, 5 million dead bodies are going to absolutely stink. I mean, I can't imagine, like, come on, are you insane? Then, of course, what happens? I assume that would stay there for hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, normal Victorian buildings have stayed there for hundreds of years. And you're talking about a sacred burial place, so that's going to be there for a long time. What if things start crumbling? How are you going to get in there to repair it without disturbing loads of graves? And then, of course, another thing, grave robbers. Grave robbing was a massive trade in Victorian London. So How are you going to keep those out? They've literally got a door now to go in and there's no digging involved. They don't have to work for it anymore. It's an easy gig now. You can go in there, rob a few pocket watches, I don't know. Needless to say, the thing was dropped. I don't think anybody was too annoyed at it. It's a ludicrous idea. And the good thing was it opened up the discussion about cemeteries in London and kind of led on to them building the beautiful cemeteries you see today, Kensal Green, Highgate and the like. So things worked out there, but I mean, it's absolute nonsense of an idea, to be honest. Next up is a more recent disaster, which you probably remember, and I remember too. It was a bridge that was proposed over the Thames that would go from Temple to the South Bank Cultural Quarter, and this wasn't going to be any bridge. This was going to be a garden bridge called the Garden Bridge. The bridge would include a series of meandering paths, trees, plants, benches, like a park suspended in the sky. The project was fronted by British legendary actress Joanna Lumley, who called it a gift to future generations. And it was designed by Thomas Heatherwick, who was famous for designing the 2012 Olympic cauldron. On paper, or should I say on a computer image of what it would look like, this thing looked absolutely beautiful, and I myself was quite looking forward to this happening. I mean, it looked like this beautiful garden that was just over the Thames and a place for city dwellers to get away from it all for a bit, and a lot of people were excited. But after a while, things kind of went south. First of all, it wouldn't really work as a bridge because the whole thing wouldn't even be open at night. So what are you going to do with that, honestly? You couldn't ride a bike over it. You couldn't drive over it, obviously. You couldn't even hold protests on it. That's not really a requirement for a bridge, but if you think of where in London this bridge is, it's likely that a protest will have to cross that bridge. So this thing that was supposed to be built for the public started to look more like it wasn't made for the public. To add insult to injury, there was already £20 million donated to this thing without a single tree being planted, and the public couldn't really use it. So it wasn't looking good, was it? And then there was a few other things to consider. I mean, how the hell are you going to support an ecosystem of very unique plants over what is essentially a filthy estuary river in Northern Europe, pretty much? It's freezing. You're going to get spray from the river. It's horrible water. Not the right place to grow plants. So basically it started to look unfeasible. The public couldn't use it. Plants couldn't really grow there. The whole thing started to cost about £20 million without even a one plant being planted. So where did that money go? Where did that money go, actually? That's a lot of money. I mean, you can buy seeds for like 90 pence, Anyway, in 2017, Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, said enough is enough. He closed the whole thing down. And now the Garden Bridge just remains some kind of plan that never happened. Sad, but true. We all know the Crystal Palace, built in 1851 to house the Great Exhibition. It was a towering marvel of cast iron and glass and the pride of Victorian London. But a lot of people don't know that a man called Charles Burton proposed turning this building into the world's first skyscraper in 1852. Burton suggested stacking the materials from the Great Exhibition Centre vertically into a 1,000-foot tower. Now, that would have been pretty massive because that's about 250 feet shorter than New York's iconic Empire State Building and only a tiny bit shorter than the Shard, which is Europe's 8th tallest building. So, yes, it would have been about 3 to 4 times bigger than pretty much any other building in London and beyond at that time. It was going to be a vertical exhibition centre filled with galleries, viewing platforms, restaurants, and on the top it would have had a massive clock tower because Victorians loved big clocks. So I guess you're thinking, how did this work? I mean, electricity wasn't a thing yet, so how did they get to the top? Did they have to walk up the stairs? No, they didn't. Burton proposed a system of steam-powered lifts, which sounds like something out of a steampunk comic, but yes, he proposed them. They would just go up with the pressure of the steam, I guess. No walking up the stairs for these guys. Needless to say, Victorians didn't really have any proper idea on how to build a skyscraper, so the idea was pretty ridiculous, actually. First of all, they proposed to build it out of iron, which is a bad idea for a skyscraper because iron isn't flexible enough. You need steel to build a skyscraper, essentially. And yes, I know there are some that are made out of iron, okay? You know, the Eiffel Tower is made out of iron, but it's not a skyscraper in its purest sense. So the tower would have no wind bracing, absolutely no fire protection, no electricity, obviously. So yeah, bad idea. Also, with the materials that they had building into the kind of London clay, it wouldn't have supported the weight. So yeah, the guy was way ahead of his time, but unfortunately, the plan was crazy at that time, so it failed, and all we really have left now is the drawings. Shame. As for what they did with the actual Crystal Palace building, they moved it and from Hyde Park to a permanent location, but in 1936 it burnt down and they never rebuilt it. And as for the whole skyscraper thing, well, you know, give it 150 odd years and London would pretty much be full of them. So, yeah, predicted the future in a way. In the last section, I said that you can't build skyscrapers out of iron, which is true. You mostly can't. But you can build tall structures, and one of those tall structures is the famous Eiffel Tower in Paris. So the Eiffel Tower is a really nice building, and it kind of made Londoners a bit jealous of the French. I mean, normally it works the other way around. I mean, the French are often jealous of the British because obviously the British have such good food. We have very interesting romantic lives, and we're just more passionate about lives than our French counterparts. But anyway, a guy called Edward Watkin took it to the next level, and he wanted to build his very own Eiffel Tower called the Watkin Tower, which would be based in Wembley. This one was going to be 1,200 feet high, which is about 175 feet taller than the actual Eiffel Tower. This one would have more platforms, more theatres, restaurants, and it would have 4 legs. It would also have a weather station on the top. Work began in 1892, but from the start it became apparent that things weren't going well. I mean, first of all, there was the problem with the old London soil again, too squishy, and also this thing was out in Wembley. I mean, Wembley's kind of on the outskirts today, but back then it would have been even further. I mean, you've got the Eiffel Tower in Paris, which is right in the centre of Paris. It's easy for people to get to. It's part of the city. Nobody wanted to trek out to Wembley to see this weird penis envy monument thing. I don't know what it was, but nobody was interested. Unlike the other buildings on the list, they actually did start building this one, despite the problems that they had. They only got up to the first level, though, and then the project ran out of money because public interest just dwindled. They saw it as a bit of a joke, and then Watkins actually died at the end of the Victorian era in 1901. So, yeah. Anyway, so like a stump stayed there for a few years, and it kind of became a tourist destination in its own right. Kind of ironic. It was nicknamed Watkins Folly. People would go out and see it and, I don't know, kick it. I don't know what you'd do with it. So that stayed there for a few years, and it was eventually demolished in 1907 for safety concerns. So, you know, if you go to the land where Watkins Folly once stood, all you'd find is, I don't know, Wembley Stadium. Yeah. That's where it is. That's where it was. The very grounds of Wembley Stadium. You were expecting me to say, I don't know, like an abandoned field or something with one horse. No. Wembley Stadium. That's where Watkins Folly was found. There's actually been 2 Wembley Stadiums, hasn't there? There was one and then they knocked it down and then built another one. Anyway, it's on the same ground. Yeah, so the land Watkins Folly stood on, very famous. Watkins Folly itself, not so famous. So that's what happened there. In the 1960s, London had a big traffic problem. It always has a traffic problem, to be honest. Any time you go in London, you will find a traffic problem. I don't know why we're highlighting the 60s. Don't know why I started it that way. Traffic has always been bad in London. Okay? Just deal with it. Now, this was partly caused by urban expansion and a booming automobile trade, a British automobile trade. After World War II, a lot of countries started building cars, and you get them cheaper when they're built in your own country, I suppose. So a lot of people started owning cars. That was the big problem. And for the people on the buses, they were stuck in traffic because more people were in cars. The London Underground was lacking investment. So they thought, oh, I know, despite having the infrastructure here already that we can improve on, why not build some kind of sci-fi futuristic monorail, like you're in Disneyland or something, or the future, yeah? And, have a monorail in London. Can't see anything wrong with that. But be ready for the fact that there was something wrong with it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on this list, would it? The route would have gone from Marble Arch to Aldwych, which, if you know London, you would know it is not very far at all. And it would have floated past Oxford Circus, Piccadilly, and Trafalgar Square. So the whole thing would have only been about 1.8 miles across, which, from the start is not a very good mass transport system. So obviously it would have been fully elevated and it would have stood on concrete pylons, just like any other monorail. And each monorail cart or train would have carried about 100 passengers. So obviously there'd be no traffic lights, no traffic, no pedestrians. It was aimed to zip people around the city as quick as possible. But there were problems. Although they developed all these fancy, flashy blueprints and had models of the whole thing at kind of architectural fairs and whatnot, the public and the press basically mocked it from day one. It was a stupid idea. One, because how are you going to build on all these Victorian and Edwardian and Georgian London streets? You're just going to plonk something like massive down there, are you? That's not going to work. Plus, a lot of shop owners on Oxford Street and beyond started worrying about the lack of light, which is a genuine concern. I mean, same goes with people who own flats or houses around that area. Well, perhaps not houses these days, but certainly flats. I mean, you buy a place there because you want the view of that. Same with business. You want people to know you're in an iconic part of London. The last thing you want is something ruining your view, like a massive concrete pylon or something just blocking light, like a big concrete slab going all over the place. The noise started to stress people, the idea of the noise. I mean, not the actual noise of the monorail, they're quite quiet, but actually developing this thing, digging things out of the ground, having to put up these massive pylons. It would have been years of work and it would have been really, really, really loud. Then, of course, there's the vibrations that are caused by that. Buildings in that area are about 300 years old in many parts. So, I mean, that's going to ruin the foundations. I think what happened here is that it was a good idea in theory. Academics liked it. But, once you put it out into the real world, it's clear that it's idiotic, actually. Then there's the price. In 1960s money, it would have cost about £10 million, and today that's about £250 million. And that's not just for the construction, it's for the maintenance. It would have cost a lot to maintain. And bearing in mind, this would have only have carried people around a small section of Zone 1. Was it worth it? Probably not. And yeah, people started mocking it, rightfully so. By the end, it was just quietly dropped. Good thing is, though, as a result of that, they did realise that, something did need to be done about the traffic here. They started investing more into the London Underground, which is probably, One of the best undergrounds in the world today, I would say, although it's a bit crowded. So yeah, some good came from it, but ridiculous idea. Glad it didn't happen. So there you have it. That's 5 structures that were planned for London but never materialised. Personally, I would have loved to have seen the Victorian skyscraper happen and the Garden Bridge. That would have been really cool. Glad that big pyramid thing didn't happen, or the monorail. Bad ideas. But you know, each one tells us something about what society thought of, you know, the world and their outlooks at the time. The Victorians were definitely ambitious enough to build a skyscraper or to think of it. And I think after World War II in London, the idea of recreating the urban centre in such a dramatic way with a monorail wasn't so crazy, actually. Anyway, you know, which one would you like to have seen built? Let me know in the comments. And if you've got any ideas for any future weird London history videos, please do let me know. Obviously, I'll give you a shout out in the video if I use your idea. Please like and subscribe so I can carry on making these, and I'll see you next time.